not just stay like this.
Is that detail, right?
So welcome to episode 3 of the Happy to Help podcast. This is the podcast about optimism. We are recording from Rockefeller's Barbers in Stranmillis.
Stranmillis, yeah.
I told the boys Botanic and they got lost. So yeah, we're recording from Rockefeller's Barbers, and hopefully the boys are back in soon and cutting away given the circumstances of the So today's guests are two fellas that I've known for quite some time. One of them I've known from I was a kid. We played football together. We grew up playing football together. Played for many of the same teams. The other is a chef lives in Belfast. If you've ever had food in Slim's Kitchen, Skinny Kitchen, or the Hatch, this man's cooked your food. So he's cooked some good food, to be fair to him. Today's podcast is basically it's a fucking class story. It epitomizes what this podcast is about: overcoming setbacks and living life after the setbacks to complete success. So we have Francis Harbinson and Barry Barrett. How are you, lads?
Doing good.
Good. Yeah. So these two lads, I sort of reached out when I came up with a podcast. I knew Barry's story and I knew what Barry has done, and I thought that's the fucking perfect story. So I invited him on to come on to the podcast and talk about it. And Barry suggested that to bring on Fra, and it just I couldn't say no, because the two guys coming on together sort of epitomizes what Barry has done, which you'll find out later in the podcast. So today's podcast is a bit of a deep one. It is surrounding stillbirth and neonatal deaths. Is that the right
baby
terminology?
Loss, yeah.
Baby loss. So I mean, this podcast is your stories, guys. So I'll throw it to Fra first. Do you want to talk about your experience with stillbirth and neonatal deaths?
Yeah, of course. But first of all, like I say, I really love what you're doing here. I think it's awesome. So
Thank you, mate.
Well done on you, mate. My experience with stillbirth and neonatal is still a bit fresh wound. Last April, me and my fiancée Naomi lost our daughter Sophia. From the get-go of us finding out Naomi was pregnant, it was a bit of a roller coaster. We went at 2 weeks and they told her she wasn't pregnant, which was really early to find out that she was in the first place. They took bloods, sent us away, brought Naomi back down 24 hours later and told her that she was pregnant. And then they told her they would keep an eye on her. So coming up to 12 weeks, we got a 12-week scan. Everything seemed perfectly fine. You know, the baby's heartbeat was good, everything like that. And then somewhere between 12 and 16 weeks, the wall of Naomi's womb had broke and it caused a large hematoma. So sort of a blood clot inside her womb. So Naomi was losing a lot of blood. The baby was under a lot of pressure. So constant trips back and forth to the hospital. You know, Naomi staying the night here and there where they observed her and kept an eye on her. And then we went for our 20-week scan. And again, in the 20-week scan, everything had seemed to the blood had stopped, the hematoma had sort of shrunk. And then the day we went into full lockdown, Naomi went into hospital. Again, in hospital, it was, you have an infection, you don't have an infection, you have an infection, we might need to stitch you up, depending on the amount of blood loss. So that went on for 4 or 5 days, and then eventually on the 2nd of April, I was bringing Naomi food and got a text from Naomi herself saying, listen, the midwives are going to bring you up, we're going to have to go up, I'm in labour. I remember thinking, fuck me.
And was this early labour, yeah?
Yeah, so this was at 21 weeks, so around 19 weeks early.
Fuck, right.
And I can remember going upstairs and going, whatever you do not cry. Naomi has been through the wars. Do not let yourself down. And I can remember walking into the labour ward and one of the midwives saying to me, hello, you must be Francis. And I says, yes, I am indeed. And she asked me, did I want a cup of coffee or toast? And I just cried, just busted out crying and locked
Straight
myself in the
away.
bathroom. She didn't even say nothing.
Oh.
It was just run into the bathroom, lock myself in, compose myself and go back out. And then I got there around 4:30, 4:45. And again, slow labour, so everything was coming and going. And then around 7 o'clock, that's when they sort of went, right, that the baby's coming. And no matter what they told you in the build-up, you always think they can do something here, no matter what.
You have trust in the doctors in the hospital.
And the whole way through it, we were like, is there any chance? And you don't hear the no they say, but at the end of the day, they know best. And we had asked and they said no, and we were like, but is there? And they were just point blank, but they were really nice in the way they were putting it across. They were like, if we do anything to try and prevent this when the baby comes out, it could harm the baby more. So it's a tough situation. And then at 7:30, Sophia was born, and at that stage they were sort of going down that the child was going to be born as a stillborn. But with Sophia was born at 7:33 and gave us around an hour and a half. So we had some time with her, but at the same time, eventually it ran its course.
Yep. And so I mean, fuck, I've never experienced anything like in my life, so I can only imagine how it feels, to be honest. And I can remember actually when it sort of happened, and me and you have known each other for years, but I can remember when it happened, and we were texting back and forward for probably since then quite frequently, and to be honest, it has brought me and you closer together as mates, because we maybe haven't talked to each other in a long while, but just reaching out and talking, we became closer. And then so I'll throw it to Barry. And Barry, do you want to tell your story?
Yeah, it's, me and my wife lost our son Quinn.
Just hold the microphone.
Me and my wife lost our son Quinn 2019 in February, and it was, I was actually at work, and Karen was out at work herself driving, and I got a phone call saying, I feel like I've got Branson Hicks, which is when you're pregnant you get these sharp pains, but women just get them and they go away. But then she basically went into labour driving, and she had to go to the Royal, and I work at Hatch, so basically I got a phone call that Quinn was on his way at 26 weeks premature. There was no signs in the pregnancy.
Up until then, it was
up until 26 weeks. It was just a healthy pregnant woman, not going in and out of hospital, no checks, no nothing. It was just every time we went, he was. Sometimes they'd say, "Oh, he seems a bit small," but I'm not the biggest lad, height-wise anyway, and nor is the wife. So it's some kind of things. There was nothing there, and it was just, and what it was, her womb was collapsed, so it caused him
like a contraction
just to basically go into labour, and as I got the phone call, and a bit like Fra, run over to the hospital because I'm on the Falls Road, so literally run across the street, and got in there. They was like, right, Barry, we've got Karen's being taken up to labour ward now. Come with us. Went up there, and then everything just slowed down. They said, right, because we're trying to make him come out in the bag in the water, even though the womb had collapsed, to not touch him as much, as you expect. As Fra said, they know everything they say word for word. Yep. And this went on for a couple of hours, and then he came out, and it was the most. The feeling in mine, I looked at Karen and she just shook her head at me. Fuck. And she just knew.
Wow, that's an intense moment, that.
Yeah, she just knew it wasn't this day wasn't gonna be ending well. And it was just, his poor little body was just so beaten, bruised from the delivery. And they took him over to the little table, tried to resuscitate him, and then they said, right, we're going to take him up. Well, they actually thought it was a girl. And then they said to Karen, it's a little. Karen asked, what is he? What is the baby? And said, it's a little girl. So we were still going to name him Quinn. And then about 10 minutes later, they was like, the time was just, time just was going slow and then fast. It was just horrendous. And then they took him upstairs straight away to ICU, and then the doctor came downstairs and said, look, we've given him every drug possible, because he wasn't breathing, obviously, because the lungs are the last thing on a baby to work.
Develop?
Yeah,
right.
So that's that cry when they come out. That starts the lungs, and they gave him the injection to give him to start his lungs. Didn't work. All the other drugs, and they said basically like, the best we can do is make him comfortable and bring him down to you.
Fuck. And how long was?
We had him for about 2 hours.
So similar
Yeah.
times.
And
Fuck, that's tactic. That.
I think there was me and my wife were just talking about it today, to be honest, and it was like her dad lives in Wales, so he managed to get over that day. By the time we told her she was in labour and it wasn't really going well, he had got over on a flight, got to the Royal. Her mum lives here, obviously come to the Royal as well. And it was, we just said today, it was one of those things, on a bit of a, positive note, the gran and granddad spent a bit of time with him, and held him.
I've never, like I said, I've never had that experience myself, but I had, because of, kind of two, one of my cousins, she had a stillbirth, and I thought it was, maybe I was maybe 16, 17. I'm from a Catholic family, and I thought it was fucking mental that she had a stillbirth, and the priest wouldn't allow a funeral in the church, right, because the baby hadn't been baptized.
No, that is a bit.
So that's tough. That's a bit
tough.
Fucking weird, isn't it? Like that's a bit of a kick in the balls after what
you've gone through,
what you've just gone through. And then the second time that I have one of my best friends. He had I can't remember the kid's name, but the kid actually lived long enough that the priest came and she was baptized, and he got the funeral in the church. But I'll always remember him carrying the coffin down the aisle in the church, and it's fucking etched in my mind. That's something you'll never forget. Like, so I just want to say thank you, lads, because I think it's a very brave conversation to have. I think with surrounding stillbirths and like neonatal deaths and baby loss, I know I'm not taking away from what the woman has went through, but a lot of the time the men in the situation are sort of forgotten, and they're sort of left to their own devices, and they're sort of just expected to deal with it on their own. So I just want to know how the two of yous, after the death, what sort of happened in the next bit of the timeline, how the two of you sort of dealt with it. If you want to go first, Fra.
So obviously, unlike most people that will go through this, because some will be their first child, I'm fortunate enough that I had a son at home, so he kept both Naomi and I on our toes. I mean, he turned 1 6 days after Sophia had been born, obviously. So we were kept busy. Obviously, it wasn't the greatest surrounding because, as you say, as the current pandemic was going on, so no one could really come see you. You couldn't really go visit anyone. But it was just tough. So, as I say, it's still hard to this day, but knowing that I get up every morning and have Jude there is sort of...
Say moving to the country didn't help you there, you called it.
Well, I mean, I moved away from you folk. I had to get away from you lot.
And how did you handle it, Barry? What was it like for yourself?
For me, it was because it was obviously mine and Karen's first.
Yep.
And it was, to get to that stage, we've been together 15 years, so it was a long time. So I tried to make sure I was there for Karen and be strong and, and just be there, because it's the most devastating thing to happen to anyone. You wouldn't want it to happen to, anyone you could even think of. So it was just try and be strong. And obviously I've got 2 older boys, so it is one of those things of, the wife actually said today, it's one of those things, your life actually stops in that disaster, but the world carries on.
Yep.
So you have to consciously think, what do I do here? You know, you've got to move on. It's like, it's no point just thinking that's it. There's no point moving on from this point. Even if it is just me and her, and like Farah says, he had his son. You have to try and be strong. And
grief's a fucking hectic thing to deal with. And I done a podcast with a friend a couple of weeks ago about grief, and since it's maybe been 4 weeks, and since then 4 weeks, from me having the conversation with him, I hate to admit it, but I probably carried my grief with me for fucking 8, 9, 10 years, and it's only the last 3 or 4 weeks I feel like, for me having that conversation with him and being honest, and it was the first time I'd ever met the fella, I feel like someone's took the chains off me.
Yeah.
And it's like right now you're fucking, now the mask is off, go and be you type thing, you know what I mean? So that's and we'll move on to what you've done from the grief. You set up the Belfast
Sands
United
FC football club for bereaved dads, and uncles.
So it's basically all men who have come across this tragedy.
Yes, so you could be the father, you could be the brother, you could be the uncle.
Try and hold the microphone.
You could be the father, the uncle, or the did I say brother? And the dad. So it's if you're any way affected, the team is there for support, bit of fitness.
Yeah.
Don't have to be Maradona, because I know me and Fra aren't.
Speak for yourself. Fra likes to think he's a baller, so he does. But
so it's how I come about doing it was, I noticed in the hospital there's so much support for the mums, which
which there should be
because they, you're both going through it, but they have to give labour. They go through labour, and it was a midwife, and she was like, this, if you ever want to talk, come down. There's support. And I was like, most men, even myself, we're not about. I know we're sitting talking about it now and stuff. Don't want to go to meetings and don't want. It's a totally different thing. And then this guy Stephen, who's Sands representative, got in contact with me, and he goes, there's a football team down Maiden City, and it's down Londonderry. Well, wherever you
gotta be political correct.
Exactly. Because it's a mixed team, It does, we know what it's like in Belfast. So
it's a bit fucking mental.
Yeah. So the team is for everybody, and I was speaking to John from Maiden City, and and he was just giving me pointers of how he went about it, and I just put a post on Facebook. It was still raw, because I'd done it in July, and we lost Quinn in February, so of the same year, so it's still pretty raw. But I just thought, let me try something here, let me do something where Quinn will not be forgotten about, and and then every player that comes or takes part, their little angel is being they're remembering and playing for their angel. So it was a slow process at first, but I just put an ad up on Facebook saying if bereavement football team, and I literally went on holiday. Actually, me and Cam went on holiday and then came back.
You can't love a fucking holiday. I know. Truck shit, jet setters here.
And there was so much interest. I can't go on holiday yet though.
You still find a way, no one used to. That's how I actually met you on holiday, remember?
I know.
We went to Barrett Festival.
Jeez.
We'll go. I want to tell a funny story here, so I'll tell a story, and then we'll cut back to where we were. Me and Barry, I met Barry and his wife Karen. We went to a festival just outside Barcelona, Benicassim, and there was one, I'll say, the next morning, and we're still all sitting drinking, right? And Karen comes down, goes, right, Barry, get back up. That's it, done, get back up. He goes, right, I'll be up in 10 minutes. And another couple of hours passed, and Karen comes back down, goes, fucking told you to get up. And he says to Karen, he goes, well, if I had went when you told me to go, you were going to shout at me. And if I go now, you're still going to shout at me. So I thought I'd get an extra couple of hours on it.
Oh, no. And I think I passed out about 10 minutes after that. We went for something to eat, didn't we?
That was a great trip. I love that trip.
Oh, yeah.
So Sands United Belfast, I think it's a fucking class idea, because when men, especially, when they go through stuff, they don't like to talk about it. They try and be the macho man, and fucking every single one of us tries to be the macho man when it comes to grief and bereavement, and you don't. It's seen as a sign of weakness. Know what I mean? If you show it in some situations, but with Sands United, you're getting all the men together, and you're playing football, and it's a means of engagement. It's kind of like a big, massive counselling session in some so to speak. Would it be?
Yeah.
Would you find a lot of people open up and talk to each other, or is it just something to take a mind away?
I think it's more because I knew it. We don't want to come down and sit and talk about it.
Yeah.
I've probably had all the stories with people contacting me of what's happened to them, but we go down and play football, and there's some of them will talk to each other, and there's some we just come down and play football. So I think it's just it's the individual person that can take
whether they want to open up or not.
Yeah.
But I think too, when you're going through something, especially something as bad as that, a guy probably thinks that there is nobody else that's went through that. So I think that by somebody going and playing for your football team, and then realising that everybody here, it's like a common cause almost. You know what I mean? These are all. I'd say it probably makes us all tight as fuck, does it?
Yeah, it does. Obviously with the pandemic, it's been a bit tough because we ain't seen each other for ages, have we? Really?
No.
And then I suppose we've got a WhatsApp group, but that's a madhouse.
Fuck.
That's a Jeremy Kyle show. That one.
WhatsApp groups are ridiculous, aren't they? Like, they're ridiculous. So they are. But how often you train without the pandemic? If a pandemic was here, if I pick a pandemic up, throw it out the window.
Once a week on Wednesday, usually at Olympia.
Yeah.
We've got a new place at the moment. We're playing on Friday. It's not permanent, but and obviously with only government guidelines of only 15 people, it's not really being advertised that we're back. We're just. And
is there? So use your Sands Belfast.
Yep.
And is there Sands at sort of every like big city? Would there be another team?
Sands it's only Belfast and the Derry one, and then England is totally different. They've got 5 teams in Brighton.
Alone.
But they play a league in England. There's a league from Glasgow down to
for all the Sands teams.
For all the Sands teams.
Right.
There's a tournament that we were gonna do before the pandemic. It is in July, and it's 160 bereaved dads all playing, and we were gonna enter a team. But then it obviously, because of the pandemic, it was called off.
It's mad how much the pandemic has fucked everything, isn't it? So this is all about optimism. This whole podcast to try and spread some optimism. So we've got up to the setbacks in these two men's lives. We've talked about what's came after the setbacks, how it affected them, and now we get to the fucking happy bit of the podcast because. I'll bring it back because I've just noticed you both have your names of your kids on the front of your tops.
Yes, yeah.
So that's pretty fucking cool. I just noticed that. Is that something that everybody in the team?
Everybody has a personalised kit with their child's name and date of birth of their little angel, and then we've got some of us got tracksuits and but we have a home and away kit with the name.
That's pretty. I like it. I just noticed that they're nice.
Only the good players got tracksuits though. Barry bought his on the side.
Yeah, I didn't even buy it. Someone gave me it. Felt sorry for me.
That's fuck. Right. So, so we'll get to the happy bit of the podcast because, Fra, you have a kid on the way.
I have a kid on the way, yes.
And Barry, you and Karen had a kid?
We had little Dylan. He's 6 months old.
Yeah.
And brought a lot of joy. And as you say, made you realise, it's worth going on. It's, it's things happen for a reason as well, So, and he's a bundle of joy.
Yeah, so fuck. I mean, Fra, you must have a fucking super spunk or something, you. Because
I don't want to say too much because I'm scared of Naomi's mum and dad hearing this, but I mean, we were told to take a break, and let's just say we were like rabbits.
So I mean, you both, like I say, kid on the way and a new kid. Yeah. What's that like, boy, having a baby around the house?
Yeah, because I'm not the youngest, as you know. 47 years of age and a 6-month-old baby, So, he said, it's grand. It's it's nice. It's even though the early mornings, Karen telling me to get up at 5 a.m, feed. No, it's what you want though. Yep. It's one of those things. You want a baby because you want to look after them and you want the joy that they bring into your life. So, yep. And getting up at 5 a.m. is all part and parcel of it. So.
Fuck, good luck to you. I'm nowhere near that myself, to be honest. And
Karen told me to say it, by the way.
And so, Fra, what's it like in your house, knowing that you have another one on the way?
There is a good sense of excitement. We're going to get another little boy. So it's going to be a madhouse soon enough. Once this one's born the 7th of June, Jude's already crazy. Jude will keep you nuts, but we're both excited. We're both looking forward to it. So it's just the beginning of another good journey.
Happy days. Nice one. So if there is anybody out there listening that wants to get in touch with Sands, how would they go about it?
There's a Sands Facebook page, which is Sands United FC Belfast. Yep. And there is also an Instagram page, it's Sands FC Belfast. And there's an email address which you can contact. And it is Sands United FC Belfast .uk. No, what am I talking about? Should have come on.
You all right, boy?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that one is Sands United FC Belfast @yahoo.com.
Happy days. And if there is anybody going out there that's going through it, what if you could say something to them, what would you say? If you could, if there is a father that's went through that and they are listening,
yeah,
what would you say to them?
Talk to your partner. Communication. There's no point bottling things up and just I've spoke to a few men and their wives, and that is the first thing that they say. They're not communicating. They're just trying to shut it away like it didn't happen, and that doesn't help at all.
It's like they're like two separate people living in the same house almost.
Yeah, exactly.
They do say this sort of thing is the most common cause for
breakups.
Couples to break up afterwards because of communication. Communication is key. Don't, as Rand says previously, don't try to be the macho man because you're only going to affect yourself and your partner and everyone else around you.
No one wins, basically.
No.
Yep. And you two men have user through the ball. Everything going well. Friday, your house is going to be mental.
My house is going to be mental.
There's a bit of silence there because everything going well.
I didn't know what was coming. He had that look on his face as if...
That wouldn't do you dirty like that, don't worry. Again, lads, thank you for having this conversation. It is a very fucking brave conversation to have. I think that it will help a lot of people that have went through it. I personally know quite a few people that have went through it, and I hope they do get a chance to listen and realise that it's not the fucking end of the road. Life goes on. There is life after death. That sounded very fucking cliche, like as if I read that from a life coach book. But yeah, thank you very much, lads. And again, anybody out there that wants to get in touch with Barry or Fra, just Sands United Belfast Instagram, Sands United Belfast Facebook. They train once a week, and hopefully you'll be starting playing some matches soon.
Yeah, we'll hopefully get back to playing one. We play once a month on the Sunday, so just have to wait till the government lets us.
It's a bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a
It's
nightmare.
a fucking terrible thing. So, again, anybody that listened last week, thanks for listening, watching. Every like, listen, watching, subscribed is greatly appreciated. And again, lads, thank you very much for having this conversation, and good luck in the future.
Thank you for having us on here.
Thanks very much for having us.